Hello, my beautiful souls. Welcome to the intuitive card reading for the week of October 13th through October 19th. You guys know what to do. Please like this video. Please subscribe to this channel if you haven't already done so. Please share this video with anybody that needs to hear the energies and influences of the week. What else is in my spiel? Oh yeah, comments down below. I love comments. I always appreciate comments. I always respond to comments. So put them down below. Feedback, comments of all kinds. Just be kind is really, it's really the only requirement. Okay, what else? And I'm actually using 2 decks this week. It feels intuitively aligned for me to do that. You guys are familiar with these decks already, Archetype and Wisdom of the Oracle. And they're shuffled and ready to go. So let's just jump right into it, guys. What do we need? Milk and honey. Okay, so this is bittersweet energy. Could sometimes mean sweet. Like, wow, this is really sweet, or somebody's being kind. Speaking of kind. So maybe this is saying, could be, but we need to be kind to ourselves, kind to others. I definitely intuitively felt like I needed to say ourselves first. So be kind to yourself. Okay, listen to... who says be kind to ourselves? Bob Ross, I think. I'm dating myself at this point. So yeah, anyway, be kind to yourself and be kind to others. That's Mr. Rogers, right? And be kind to others. So yeah, so what do we need? We need to do that. Also, bittersweet energy could be the need to go forward with something that, it's the energy of like one door opens, another one closes kind of deal. So this is basically saying, like, if you have to go forward with something but lose something else, you need to do that. You need to go forward. You need to understand that, like, what you're letting go of, you're getting. So I love that this energy is coming through this way. And this could also have like a third symbolism with this card because it does have a rainbow. It's basically saying the rainbow comes out after the storm. Okay, so follow the rainbow and maybe a storm has passed or something along those lines, and then the treasure is right there at the end of the rainbow. So that could also be that. So all really good messages coming right off the bat. So I love that. All right, what do we need to take action on? We have Pioneer, but we have it in the shadow. Interesting, compulsive need to keep moving on. Okay, speaking of moving on, this is basically saying moving on too quickly. Okay, so this sometimes could be like linked to, like, the Shadow Pioneer is kind of like shiny object syndrome. It could also be like non-committal type energy, where we have like a million ideas but we don't act on it type of energy. I'm trying to not get in the shot here, but I'm trying to make sure that we can see that. Yeah. So basically it's saying that it's under action needed. So it's saying that we need to kind of stop doing that, right? So we need to kind of stop starting 10 different projects and not finishing the one project. Okay. So this is more so like focus energy. It's almost saying like we need to kind of focus on the one thing that we started. So this is about like not going all over the place. Like, if you're somebody who's like me, who's multi-passionate, who has like a million ideas per day, that's great. But you need to pick one and stick with one is basically what it's saying here. It's coming through very clearly here. So if I'm very curious if we get, there's an unfinished symphony card in the Wisdom of the Oracle deck. Very interested if we get that. That's kind of like, the opposite of procrastination, like finishing up old projects kind of deal. I'm very curious if we get that. But this is basically, because it's similar energy, but this is basically saying like you need to pick something and stick with it. I need to take action on it, whatever it actually is. So if you have a million goals, if you have maybe not a million, maybe you have a dozen goals or something. This is saying pick one and go balls to the walls on it, and that's it. Focus on that one until it's done. Okay, that's basically what it's saying here. Okay. And if you're trying to make something work right now, try to make it work until you really intuitively feel like it's time to give up. Nothing wrong with giving up, but basically it's saying like keep trying until you go, don't let other things distract you. This isn't any part of our lives, by the way. I'm not getting one specific, but for an example, if this is talking about relationships, if you're trying to make a relationship work, if you're trying to make it work with one person, do not get distracted by other people right now, if you get my drift, okay? Focus on the relationship, put your all into it, put everything you can behind it, and if it really still doesn't work, then you can move on, okay? So this is basically saying, like, you gotta stick with one idea, one person, apply it to how it resonates in your life and how it fits into your life, but we can't keep just like moving on and we're not trying hard enough, if that makes sense. Like we're not putting enough effort into one particular thing to make it work. So that's what it's under action needed. That's why I'm very much emphasizing on this, that we really need to put in the work this week, okay? And focus. Issue. What do we have an issue with? Peace. Oh, we don't love seeing the peace card here. All right, so we're having issues with peace. So we're unpeaceful. This can mean so many different things for so many different people. We could be very anxious. We could be, I want to say the word like unrest. Like it feels like we're unsettled. Maybe you're in between something. If you guys have not seen the monthly, go back to the monthly. We've had, I believe the in between two worlds card came up in the monthly, and we had a lot of change energy going on for October. We're in the middle of October here, so maybe there's some things that maybe being in limbo is making you feel unsettled. Maybe you're moving between houses and you've got half of your life in the first, you have half of your furniture in the first house and you have the other half of the furniture in the new house. Okay, that's very, very unsettling. You're not at peace. There's something going on where we're just not at peace. Again, could mean so many different things. Maybe you don't feel at peace in your relationship for whatever reason. You guys keep fighting. There's no resolution. There's so many different ways that we can kind of feel uncomfortable and unpeaceful. Like I said, the word unrest keeps coming up. So I don't love this feeling, guys. My ultimate goal in life is just to be at peace. To be emotionally free and at peace is my goals. So yeah, I don't love this, and we got to work through it, and maybe we'll get some more clues as we go on. But I will say, I usually give you guys like a hint if it's like major or minor type energy. It doesn't feel like it's huge, so hopefully we'll be getting some sleep this week. We'll put it that way. All right, we have challenge, but we have thief in the shadow. It says stealing money, creative ideas, affection, or other powers you think you lack. Okay, so this is about taking other people's ideas. This is about taking from others because you feel like you're in lack. And so it's saying it's challenging because this is happening, okay? And so this might be like why we're having issues with it, because it actually, so this could be from, let me put it down. This could be from other people, okay? So maybe you feel like somebody is taking your ideas, right? They could be acting in the shadow in the thief, right? They could be, somebody stole your idea and it's very challenging because, well, it's very frustrating, right? Because you came up with it, and somebody could be, it could also be money. Maybe somebody owes you money and it feels very challenging because you need that money this week or something along those lines. So I definitely do feel like it could be coming towards us. Could be also us as well. Maybe we owe people money. Maybe we took somebody's idea and it's backfiring, or something along those lines. But we're taking something because we feel like we're in lack. But it doesn't necessarily feel like the challenge is that. It's like the challenge comes from this exchange, not necessarily from a lack perspective, if that makes sense at all. But yeah, it definitely does feel like somebody took something from either you or somebody, you took something from somebody else, and it's now creating more like a bigger problem. Moral of the story, don't steal, stick to your own ideas, stick to your own, obviously like the money thing, we strive to not, who wants to borrow money from somebody, that kind of thing. But crap happens, life happens, but I definitely do feel like there's some kind of challenge there in this area from any of the scenarios that I just mentioned. All right, what's changing? I love change. All that glitters. Okay, all that glitters is I like this card. So this is basically saying that all that glitters isn't always gold. So basically it's saying like not everything is always just, well, speaking of lack, right? It's kind of saying like what you lack isn't, maybe not everything is chalked up to be, or you feel, definitely the word envious is coming up through here, through this energy. It's like you might be envious of like what other people have, but what you have is something that you're appreciating more because it's under change. So this mindset is changing. It's basically what it's saying. It's saying like you're at a place where you understand that it's all that glitters isn't necessarily gold. Okay, examples, and as I mentioned, I give you guys like kind of an indication if it's like major or minor energy. It feels major. Okay, so this could be globally. What's coming to my mind right now is something along the lines of like a lot of people, you know, maybe in the past, you know, maybe the past like several decades, to be honest, we've wanted fame and fortune and you know, always kind of looked up to celebrities and things like that. And this is kind of like the changing of that energy. It's like saying like the collective's consciousness is kind of changing in the way of like we shouldn't be, you know, we shouldn't be idolizing celebrities. They're just people like us. You know, we shouldn't strive to be a billionaire. It's not about the money, you know, it's about making the impact instead, and about, you know, getting, you know, having your basic needs met and, you know, creating the life that you want, not necessarily like what society tells us that we want. Okay. So I like that. This is really about like the feeling of envy is changing, right? Where it's saying like the things that we used to be envious about, or what you personally, you know, something specific to you that used to be envious about, you don't necessarily want anymore, right? And so that is definitely changing. And like I said, it's big. That's a big change. So yeah, I wonder what comes up in the reflect card, because there definitely is a lot of reflection that kind of comes with that, right? So I love that for us, because it's a little bit more authentic in a way, right? And it's giving us the humility, you know, it's giving us more humility. It's giving us more, you know, a sense of, you know, being more humble and that kind of thing. And yeah, being more authentic, right, to who you actually are. So, and being grateful for what you have, and not always kind of like, you know, there's nothing wrong with wanting more, you know, and desiring more, and you deserve everything that you truly want. But that's the point. It's kind of like from a soul level. Do you truly want it from a soul level? Okay. And so I think that's so interesting. And I like that for us. All right, focus. We have Mystic in the Shadow, Delusional Rapport with the Divine. Okay, so this is feeling disconnected. So it's saying focus on getting connected, kind of reversing that. So anything that you can do to connect to the mystic side of you, the mystical side of you, however you do that is, you know, your business. If you're religious, you know, maybe going back to church, feeling more connected, that kind of thing. Even though the mystic arts are more so about like the, you know, the God within us, so more so spirituality. But yeah, this is just saying focus on trying to reconnect in any way you can. There's not too much more to say here. Let's see what the reflect is. Soulmates, okay. So this is saying reflecting on our soulmate connections, or maybe what a soulmate looks like to us. This could be romantic, but it could also be platonic. So this is about how we connect to others. What makes a soulmate relationship for us? I know a lot of people in the spiritual community have different definitions. It's, for me, I make it a little bit more simple, and I say, you know, soulmates kind of, they make things a little bit more smooth, right? Things are more in flow than they are in force, basically. In a soulmate type connection, that things just become easy, easier actually, because I don't think any relationship is easy, and there's no way in hell that anybody's going to be in a relationship and never fight. Okay, so this is basically asking you to kind of reflect on those type of relationships. If you're single, I would say this is a really good week to really redefine what kind of partnership that you're looking for. Okay, and so yeah, it's a good week to really reflect and be introspective around that topic. Responsibilities. We have monk nun in the shadow, negative judgment of the physical world. Okay, so this is about, this sometimes has different meanings, but this is coming through in the way of like attachment to physical things. So it says your responsibilities are to not necessarily focus on more of the material things. Your responsibilities are to, focus on what actually matters, and not necessarily the material things. And I feel like somebody out there really needs to hear that, but this is basically saying, like, make sure you're spiritually okay before you're materially okay, if that makes sense. And that's your responsibilities, basically. Money, finances, and career. What do we got going on, guys? Serendipity. Okay, so this is about like kind of like flow, where things are meant to be. So I love this under money, finances, and career. Put that in this section too. So this could be that what is meant to be at work will be. And so, long story short, if you're trying to force something at work and it's not happening, just let it be, okay? If you're trying to get a different role at work or trying to get more hours and you're really fighting for it, or you're trying to fight for a better relationship with your manager, or, whatever you're fighting for, and if it's not happening, it might not be serendipitous, right? Or, kind of the opposite. If something is happening at work, it is serendipitous. Like maybe you did get transferred at work, maybe you did get a different manager, and that's not necessarily what you wanted, but it's kind of like, just let it happen. That's what Spirit is saying. It's saying like, it's serendipitous that this is going to happen. And same thing with money and finances. You can apply that. Let me see if I can think of an example. Maybe you and your significant other are talking about, no, that's not a good example. It's hard for me to come up with them on the spot, but let's just put it this way. If it's meant to be, it'll be. If you have to force it too much, then you gotta stop. I do also want to remind you guys, diagonally, we have the peace card up there where we're having issues with peace. So it almost tells me like we have to kind of surrender to get that peace, right? So I do think that there might be something frustrating happening at work where we did want something, but we're not getting it. And Spirit is asking us to, like, surrender to it. And when we're not surrendering, we're not at peace. Okay, so these cards can be connected in that way. So yeah, just if it's meant to be, it'll be. Don't spend too much of your time, your energy, your resources in trying to make something happen if it's not going to happen. That's really kind of the gist of it, to be honest. All right, surprise. We have King, enlightened, benevolent leadership, benefiting those in your charge. Okay, so this is like really positive leadership. So we have it under surprise. So basically it's saying like, maybe you come out of the woodwork and you are a good leader, or you discover positive qualities about yourself that you could be a leader. Or if you've never wanted to be a leader, this is especially because it's under surprise, you are put in a position where you're going to be a leader. Okay, so and it's a good leader, and an empathetic, a benevolent, honorable king, right? That's what it's saying. It's like leader of a kingdom. So this could also come with responsibilities. So you might have surprise responsibilities in some way, that you have to rule over something, or take the lead in something, or that maybe you weren't expecting. So this could be tied to the career. The career section is right next to it. So maybe surprise, you're leading your team this week. You have, somebody was supposed to do the presentation, and surprise, it's you instead. And you do a good job. That's, you do a positive job. You do great work. And it may stir up feelings in you that maybe you are a leader, right? And you never thought that you could be, but you definitely can be, and a good one at that. Friends, we have orphaned. Oof, we don't like this under friends. We don't ever really like this card, but it does come up. Orphaned is always feeling alone, loneliness, depression, feeling isolated. So it's under friends. So we don't love that. So maybe you don't feel supported. Maybe you don't feel seen. Maybe you don't feel heard in your friends group. It could be, towards other people. Maybe you're, a friend of yours is depressed, and you're kind of working on that this week. You're trying to be there for them. You're trying to support them during this difficult time. Or it could be the opposite. It could, it could be geared towards you, where maybe you're feeling depressed. You don't spend a lot of time with friends, and you kind of, we've been there, right? We kind of like shut out the world and don't necessarily ask for help or support or something like that. So I definitely do feel like it's like a little bit of an isolating time. So don't love that. I will say reach out for support if you need it. But, going by this card, maybe you guys ignore that. Some of you guys ignore that. But it's a little bit of a lonelier week, I will say, in that aspect, at least with the friend group or community or family or something like that. Romantic connection, we have athlete in the shadow, misuse of athletic ability for selfish ends. Okay, so this is the opposite of being an athlete. The opposite qualities are not having enough willpower, not having enough discipline, undisciplined, unstructured, not willing to go the distance, not being mentally strong. That kind of thing. So it came in the shadow, and it came through romantic connection. So this is basically saying that, maybe we feel like we're not strong enough for our partners, or not being, strong enough for them, not going the distance, not having discipline, not having the willpower. So there's something going on here where within our romantic connections, we're feeling like all of those things. The thing that comes to mind is like maybe some people are kind of straying from the relationship. That wouldn't surprise me with the Pioneer card up there, where we're struggling with not straying from something. We're struggling from not committing to one thing. Okay, so there might be some issues here with straying within the relationship. Maybe emotionally stepping out of the relationship, romantically, or, even, I think I can say this, sexually, stepping out of the relationship. So, we're not as committed. There's not too much, commitment here is an issue in some way, shape, or form in our romantic connections, which I don't love. Could also be connected there. Look at this, right down the line. We have the reflect card, we have the soulmate, so we're thinking about our romantic connections, okay? We're reflecting on our romantic connections, so something might happen this week, okay? So, and it might have something to do with this athlete in the shadow. So, very interesting. For those that are dating, maybe this is, maybe you feel like you can't go the distance with somebody. Maybe you feel like you can't settle down right now, and that's totally fine, just recognizing it, but, being honest with ourselves and other people, is the best policy always. I know it's not always the easiest, but it's the best. Here it is, guys, Unfinished Symphony. I kind of, what did I say earlier? I think I said it around the Pioneer card as well, because that was like really big energy there about finishing up something. Sticking with one thing. And this is basically saying it's important that you finish that one thing, okay? This is like the end of procrastination as well. The Pioneer, not so much, but this is that added benefit of stop procrastinating. You have to go after what you set your mind to, whatever you commit to, right? you have to go forward with that. And this is basically saying it's important that you do that. I'm not very interesting that it's in this slot, not shocked, and not shocked that it even came up. Okay, I said that in the beginning. I'm not, I'd be very curious to see if it comes up to double down, and it did double down. So definitely it's about like sticking to one thing and finishing it, right? To the, sticking with it to the end, basically. All right, health and wellness. We have Messiah serving humanity with humility. Speaking of humility, as we kind of like talked about in the All That Glitters. So basically this is saying that essentially you are the one, basically. Let me just kind of talk out this energy for a second. You are the one that can it's like, it feels like a superhero. Save humanity. You're the one that can do this particular thing. You are the one that is meant to do this thing. You are the one that can usher in something new. All right, so it's under health and wellness. So this might be about like understanding that you are, gosh, this is a tough one, the person that can do the particular thing. Does that make sense at all? So if you are someone that feels that you can help somebody in this particular niche area, I will say, then you need to kind of go forward with this. And maybe an example is, God, guys, this is a hard one. And I find it actually very interesting that we have a lot of spiritual archetypes. So we had the monk, nun, messiah, mystic. So just throwing it out there. So definitely focus on reconnecting to, a higher power or your spirituality in some way, shape, or form. Because this is, it's not lost to me that we have 3 of these in the archetype deck. But this is basically saying, if you have a cause that you are very niched at, you must help others and go forward talking about it and helping others through it, okay? So I'm trying to think of the other archetype that's very similar to this, but it's basically saying, like, if you've gone through something, especially if it's niched, you have to really, you're the one that really has to carry on the message, okay? And so the best thing I can kind of like think about with this is if you've had something really like unusual happen to you, and I know I don't mean to always relate it back to me, but sometimes the examples make sense in my head to this particular energy, and hopefully it makes sense for you. But I have 2 separate issues happening physically that are very rare, but also specific to me and niched, okay? And so I have learned a lot from those things. And so this is basically saying, like, you have to serve humanity by speaking out about it and helping others go through the same thing, okay? So this is, like, again, I keep getting, like, the word niche coming through, which means, like, a specified area. So if you're specified in something particular, you have to kind of go forward with it and not necessarily shy away from it to help others. Does that make sense? Like, let's see if I can relate this to something else. If this relates to me because in another way as well, because I've had a lot of experiences in my life, definitely dealing under health and wellness that other people have not experienced quite exactly like me, although they may have experienced kind of similar things. Like, for an example, if we're talking about a spiritual journey here, we could be talking about mental, spiritual, physical. Let's talk about the spiritual journey. If you're going on a spiritual awakening and you've learned something or you have specific knowledge to something, you need to kind of talk to other people and help them through it as well, because nobody's gone through it exactly the same way as you have, if that makes sense. Okay. If we're talking about a mental health journey, if you have a very specific type of disorder that not a lot of people maybe have gone through, you need to start seeking out other people that maybe have gone through it, but also understanding the knowledge that you have to take it, and I don't want to say be proud about it, but like make sure you're helping other people to succeed with it in any way you can. So if you're talking about the mental journey, maybe your therapist wants you to lead, okay, because we have the King card, surprise, wants you to lead a group therapy group therapy session this week and asks you to do that. It's kind of saying like like putting these two together, the Messiah and the King. It's basically saying like, yeah, it would be in your best interest to help people going through what you're going through. Okay, so that would satisfy the King surprise leadership, and it would satisfy, it would apply to the Messiah here. So, in the health and wellness. So hopefully that makes sense. This was a tough one to kind of massage out, I should say, or, interpret, maybe I should say. But yeah, it's kind of like saying like it's not under responsibilities, okay? It's under health and wellness, but it is kind of saying like it's kind of your responsibility or how to usher in the good fortune forward, right? To help other people succeed. Hopefully that makes sense. If it doesn't, put it down below. I am happy to try to clarify as best as I can. All right, overall outcome. Well, I'm not shocked at this, honestly, because I just mentioned, okay, we have a lot of spiritual cards in the spiritual archetype. Okay, archetypes are like embodying that type of thing, what you embody for this week. And so we have the Messiah, we have the monk, nun, we have the mystic. So we have a lot of spiritual things going on. Okay, so overall outcome, we need to connect to a higher power. We haven't had this in a long time. Obviously, as somebody who's in the spiritual space, I would love to, we would love to have a daily spiritual practice that we keep up, every single day. But I know people, life happens, life's basically, and we can't always connect in the ways that we want to. So this is basically saying that this is a good idea that we do this week. Like we recenter ourselves and we really get there again, okay, and connect into a higher power, whatever that means for you. Okay, so definitely connect, okay? No more disconnection, connect. Guys, I like this week, okay? I like how we started out with like moving forward type energy about the milk and honey. I like how the action needed is really making sure that we commit to one thing and stick to it, pick something, stick to it kind of energy. And yeah, I see nothing here that I think would be a red flag. I don't love the thief. I don't love that we're not necessarily, our souls are not at peace. Don't love that either. And I don't love the orphaned here in the corner with her friends, family, and that kind of thing. Although I will say, it feels like this week is more so about like reconnecting to our spiritual selves and not necessarily, a huge socializing week or something like that where, connecting to our humanity or, other people and that kind of thing. So yeah, very clearly saying we should really reconnect to our spiritual selves, higher selves, and that kind of thing. So, all right, I've talked enough, guys. I've talked enough. I really hope this is helpful for you, and enjoy your week, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye.